Phone camera versus DSLR. What are you missing with a phone? Hi, and a very warm welcome to episode 182 of the Photography Explained podcast. I'm your host Rick, and in each episode I will try to explain one photographic thing to you in plain English in less than 27 minutes-ish without the irrelevant details. I'm a professionally qualified photographer based in England with a lifetime of photographic experience which I share with you in my podcast. Here is the answer bit. If you use a phone and not a camera, you're missing out on so much of the wonderful world of photography. You really are. And these are the things that I'm going to talk about. Well, starting off with the taking photos with a camera experience. Yes, really. Time and enjoyment. Composition, the good old viewfinder, image quality, consistency, cameras, lenses, camera settings, the simple self-timer, tripods, and the other accessories that help us. Yes, these are the things that you're missing out on if you take photos with a phone and not a camera. I'm going to go through these one by one and explain what I'm going on about. Now, when I say a DSLR camera, that's because that's what I use, and I use a Canon 6D. But these things, they apply, of course, to all DSLR cameras and mirrorless cameras and other cameras, let's be honest with you. And to be honest, I couldn't fit mirrorless camera in the title. It made it too long, which wouldn't help me with other things which I don't need to bore you with. But there you go, the truth is out. So the first thing, the taking of photos with a camera experience. That sounds a bit waffly, doesn't it, Rick? Well, it's not really, because this is my thing. I love taking photos with my camera, but I don't love taking photos with my phone. That's it. I don't really like taking photos with my phone, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, which of course I am. Not sure why I say that. Taking photos with my phone, well, it's about as enjoyable to me as checking my bank balance. It's a functional thing that I do with a device that is all things to me, but not my main camera. No, taking photos with a camera is a wonderful experience. Now, I know this sounds a bit vague and woolly, especially if you've never held a camera before, but you're the person I am after. If you've never held a camera before, this is what you're missing out on. And if you've never held a camera before, how are you meant to know this? You're not going to, are you? So taking photos with a tool designed to do just that and nothing else, it's a joy. Well, it is to me anyway. Taking photos with my camera, it changes how I approach taking photos. Or, well, sorry, to put it better, taking photos with my phone changes my approach to taking photos. With my phone, I lift it. I'm going to pick my phone up now. With my phone, I lift it up like that. I touch the screen and I take a photo. That's it. With my dedicated camera, as that's what it is, I look around, think, take everything in, study the light, study how things relate to each other, move around to get the best composition that I can, and lots of other stuff. And when I'm taking photos with my camera, I'm just looking for one photo, the best photo that I can get that I will edit. But with my phone, I take the photo and move on. There's no thought behind it. Now, you might have some questions there, but hopefully I'll answer them now. Okay, time and enjoyment. Well, time spent taking photos with my camera, it's time that I love. It's my thing that I love to do. And I've been doing this for over 40 years now, and I love doing this more now than I ever have done, which tells you something, doesn't it? But I don't enjoy taking photos with my phone. Now, I make time to take photos with my camera, but I barely stop when I'm taking photos with my phone. Sure, I could spend more time taking photos with my phone, of course I could, but I don't want to. There you go, I just don't want to. And there is a very good reason why. Composition. Sure, phones and cameras are amazing, but I cannot get the best compositions holding my phone? I cannot get the best compositions holding my phone in front of my face. To get the best compositions, I need to put my phone on a tripod. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well just use my camera, mightn't I? And more on tripods in a bit as well. No, there's something else about cameras that you don't get with phones. The viewfinder. The viewfinder is the thing that you look through on the back of a camera. That is the viewfinder. Don't love the term. I love what it does though. A DSLR has an optical viewfinder. Through optical genius, you're actually looking through the lens that you're taking the photo with. It's exactly the same view. With a mirrorless camera, you've got an electronic viewfinder because you haven't got that box of mirrors and stuff on the top, you know, the big lumpy bit on the front of a DSLR camera. With a mirrorless camera, you don't have that. There's no mirror. That's why it's called mirrorless camera. Yes, I know, we need a better term than mirrorless camera, don't we? I've covered that one before. Now, I use this to compose my images, the viewfinder that is, and when I look through the viewfinder, all I can see is what I'm looking at. Everything else is out of my view, and there is nothing else distracting me, and this does make a difference. Just checking some grammar there that was rubbish. And in brilliant sunlight, yes, we do get this every now and then here in England, I can see perfectly what I'm taking a photo of. Now, with my phone, on a sunny day, I can't really see what's on my screen. I can't see properly. I've got an iPhone 15 Pro. Now, if I can't see what I'm taking a photo of, how can I possibly get the best composition? Yes, the small matter of being able to see what I'm taking a photo of when I look through the viewfinder is, on its own, such a significant difference between taking photos with a camera rather than taking photos with a phone. And that is a problem for me with taking photos with phones, and I don't see a solution to this problem. So that's a biggie for me, the viewfinder, and I'll probably drift into this one on every episode. It's not in the script. If you've never taken photos with a camera, you won't know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm telling you now, because if you don't know, you don't know, do you? You don't know what you're missing out on, which is the whole point of the episode. Right, I'm going to move on to image quality. You can take better photos with a camera than you can with a phone. You can get better quality images with a camera than you can with a phone. And I covered this in the last episode, and lots of other good technical stuff. So if you want to know more about that, which I hope you do, when you've finished listening to this episode, of course, check out episode 181 for lots more on this. And that episode is called Phones versus Cameras, which is better to take photos with. Yep, phones versus cameras. I'm all over it, aren't I? But I am more than happy here. You can take better photos with a camera than you can with a smartphone. Sure, you could take great photos with a phone, but a camera gives you more opportunities and capabilities to take better photos. Digital cameras have larger sensors than phone cameras, which give better opportunities to take higher quality photos. And my camera, it's got a full frame sensor. It's 36mm wide by 24mm high. And modern phones, they've got tiny sensors in them. I mean, they're incredible considering the size constraints, but they're still tiny sensors. And the size of a sensor has a massive say in image quality. I know that sensor size determines the size of everything else, like the camera's size and weight and bulk. I'm not denying it's not bulky, but I don't care. I'm fine with the size, weight and bulk of my camera, absolutely fine with it. And you get less noise in low light situations with a larger sensor. Sorry, that's another one for episode 181. Now, I was expecting a backlash from this being episode 181, but all the feedback I got was from people agreeing with me, which was nice. Of course it was. Consistency. I need consistency with my image captures, not only within a set of photos I'm taking, but also from one shoot to the next over months and years. Now, I take my photos in a certain way, so if you hire me, you will have a pretty good idea of what your photos will look like. I take all my photos the same way with the same camera settings. I use AV mode, but I still have a manual control of the settings that matter to me. As in, I don't use manual mode, but I've got manual control of the settings because I'm doing the important stuff myself. And this is how I can take photos today that look similar to photos taken years ago, and it's quite uncanny, really. See, this is very important to me, and it's also important to the people I take photographs for. Now, if I used computational photography, that wouldn't give me what I'm after. I wouldn't know what I was going to get from one shoot to the next. And before somebody comes on and says, oh no, you can get exactly the same thing, I don't think that you can. I know what I'm doing. I know the settings I'm using. I know what I'm doing from shoot to shoot, and that's how I get the consistency I need. It's by me doing it, not computers. Right, cameras. Well, cameras are clever things, aren't they? I mean, they're nowhere near as clever as phones. Nope, I know that. And phones, of course, do all sorts of things, and cameras do one thing, and one thing only, and that's their appeal. They are designed to take photos with, and nothing else, which makes them a joy to use. The handling of a great camera is such a wonderful thing, and as an example, my good old Canon 6D has been designed to fit perfectly in my hands, which it does. It's a joy to hold. Whereas I have to put my iPhone 15 Pro in a case or I'll drop it and break it. No, being brutally honest with you, the ergonomics of my iPhone are truly, truly dreadful. Oh yes, sorry, I'm talking about my Canon 6D, my Canon DSLR, because that is what I use for my commercial work, and I paid for this camera with my own money. Just saying. Hint, hint, Canon. Right, lenses. Stop it, Rick. The lenses I use are high quality, giving me the specific focal lengths and depth of field, or as I like to call it, depth of sharpness, that I need. When a lens is put on a camera, the combination just feels right and it makes sense. You got a nice sense of balance, and I hold the camera in the right hand on the grip, and the lens, I cup it underneath, taking the weight, and it just feels lovely and right. A good camera and lens combo. A great camera and lens combo, sorry. One being Canon 6D, Canon 17 to 40mm lens. I know I can't believe Canon aren't paying me for all this promotion, but hey ho, this is what I use. Interchangeable lenses give us photographers all the choices that we need without losing quality. And we have different lenses for different subject matters, and that's all fine with me. Going back to me, I make a conscious decision to choose the focal length for every image that I take. I usually use my wide-angle lens, which is the Canon 17 to 40mm lens, and I also have a telephoto lens that I use when the subject matter requires it, but most of my photos are taken with a wide-angle lens. Bit of a wide-angle fan, me. And one last thing on lenses, an optical zoom is better than a digital zoom. An optical zoom, you've got known quality throughout the range of the zoom. Right, camera settings. I choose the camera settings to capture images the way I want them captured. And I'm talking here about aperture, how much light I capture, and the depth of field, and also the image quality. Shutter speed, getting the correct exposure, getting things as sharp as possible every time. ISO, well, set at 100 for the highest quality image capture. Auto bracketing, I decide the range of lights and darks I capture, which is also known as the dynamic range. White balance, I do specific things to get the base colours correct, which is very important. Focus point, where I focus, which I do manually for every photo, selecting a single focus point. Yes, really, that is what I do. Raw files. With raw files, the only processing done is the processing to create the photo itself. I do all the other processing for every photo that I take. See, RAW's different from JPEG. If you take photos using the JPEG picture format, when you take the photo, there is processing applied to the photo, and you can't undo it. I mean, sure, you can reverse some of it, but you can't undo it. It's baked into the image, so it changes your starting point. I shoot in RAW, and I've got the raw data to work with. The photos look rubbish to start with, but they get much better. I use loads more settings, but these are the main ones. And each setting contributes in its own way to varying degrees to every image that I get. And you don't get this with smartphone cameras, do you? No, you don't, Rick. Right, the simple self-timer. Yes, the simple self-timer. My digital camera is normally on a tripod. More on that in a bit. I have all the settings how I want them. I've decided where my focus point is. I gently press the shutter release button and wait 10 seconds so the camera is absolutely still. And this helps me to get the sharpest photos that I can. Right, tripods. I've mentioned tripods quite a few times. So here we go. I take every photo that I can with my camera on a tripod. Now, why do I do this? Well, there's a few reasons. Firstly, it helps me get the best composition. I find it's much better than taking photos handheld, and I can make fine adjustments to the composition with my camera in a fixed position. If I'm stood there with my camera in front of me, if I move a bit, I've lost that precision, so I get better compositions with my camera on a tripod. See, what I used to do, I used to take loads of photos of the same thing and then try and find the best one in Lightroom. Now, I take the time to get the best single composition that I can, and I take one photo and then I move on, and I know that the photo I've taken is the best composition that I can get. And using a tripod, it allows me to use the lowest ISO to get the highest quality. The shutter speed doesn't matter to me because the subject matter, i.e. the building, it's not moving. Well, you'd hope not, wouldn't you? And my camera is sitting on a solid platform, namely the tripod. So my tripod helps me to take better photos. I don't need to worry about ISO. I don't need to worry about shutter speed. I do worry about the aperture, and I set that, and everything else works around that. And that is how it works for me. There's other accessories that help us take photos with cameras, but I'm not going to cover them here because that's a rabbit hole I don't really want to get into, so I'll put that one on the list for a future episode. Okay, the talky bit. Right, DSLR versus phone camera. Is this really an issue? Yes, it is. Many people who have got into photography with a phone might not know about any of this stuff. Now, the things I've talked about are how I approach my photography. Each of these things contributes to every photo that I take. I'm talking here about photography as it has been for years and years. Photography started with, well, it was other stuff before film, but film was the primary medium when photography became something anyone could do. Now, I don't need to give you a history lesson about photography. Don't worry, that's not what this episode is all about. Now, I use my phone for all sorts of things, and it's always with me. It's integral to my daily life with apps for email, banking, health, music, my car, and loads of other stuff too. And you're probably in the same boat as me. So when I take photos with my phone, as I said before, I lift the phone, touch the screen, job done. And yep, I can post the photos on social media in a second, but I don't. That's not what I'm all about. That is not important to me. It's not important to my clients. There's still a world of people out there who don't need everything instantly. There are still people out there who accept professional work takes time. So that's phone photography for me. Lift the phone, touch the screen, boom, gone, move on. That is phone photography for me. Much of what I said, it relates to the human side of things, you know, the experience of taking a photo with a camera and all that softer stuff. And the bits that I do when I take a photo, these are the things that are particular to me, of course they are. As tech evolves and AI grows, I think this is going to become more important, not less important. Photography is drawing with light, it's art, I've hesitated to say. In fact, I haven't put in the script, it's art. But it is. And where we can make a difference is how we capture that light using the tools that we have. Now, suppose we all rely on phones and automatic settings and processing. I mean, if we do that, all our photos are going to look the same, aren't they? Because the human part of photography will be bypassed to varying degrees by the computers. No, the creative part of photography is what we humans provide. That is the difference. And the creative bit, it's all the stuff that you don't get with a phone. Well, not to the same degree, and not how I want it either. Okay, what if I use my phone to take photos and not a camera? Well, I think I've covered this, haven't I? Move on, Rick. Oh no, sorry, one thing. There is an old saying, the best camera is the one that you have with you. And if you haven't got your camera with you, yeah, you've got it. And I want to add also that mobile phones are amazing these days. I'm not anti-mobile phones, not for a second, okay? But I am pro taking photos with a camera. What do I do? Well, I've got an old DSLR, haven't I? I take photos with my Canon 6D. Yeah, I've got an old DSLR, and that's a point I want to make here. You don't have to get a brand new camera. Now, I know shiny, new, expensive DSLRs are wonderful, but so are cameras like the 10-year-old Canon 6D. Now, a full-frame DSLR will give you excellent images, be it shiny new or 10 years old like mine. So you don't have to spend a ton of money to get a proper camera, using speech marks there, sorry, and you can get a full-frame camera for not that much money these days. I mean, like my good old Canon 6D, 200, 300 quid, you've got a Canon 6D in great condition. Let's remember, for me, higher quality images are my priority and always will be. So what's your answer, dear listener? Yep, seamlessly I'm going to move on to my survey, which I mentioned in the last episode. You can tell me your answer by completing the survey, which is up on the Photography Explained podcast website. Just go to photographyexplainedpodcast.com/survey 2024. I'm going to leave the survey to run for a couple of months, I think, now. Then I'm going to pick up on the results and have another episode where I have a little review of your answers and see where you guys are up to, because this is really interesting to me. Okay, I haven't got any thoughts from the last episode other than what I've said so far, which is the thoughts from the last episode in this episode. Next episode, learn from your photos and other photographers, title to be worked on. Yeah, this one's been bumped a couple of times, but I'm going to actually get onto it next episode. One thing I'd like to say here, we've got lots of photos and there's lots we can learn from them. So I'm not just talking about looking at other photographers and being amazed by how amazing they are and frustrated by how amazing they are, but we can also learn from the photos that we have, which has got to be a good thing, hasn't it? Right then, if you have a question you would like me to answer, just email me, sales@rickmcavoyphotography.co.uk, or head over to the podcast website, photographyexplainedpodcast.com/start. And while you're there, check out the questions page where there's a big old list of things you can choose from. I updated it recently and it's looking good now. Got about 5 years worth of work there. Have a look, get in touch, be great to hear from you. And if you just want to say hi, say hi. Right, get an email from me. Yes, if you'd like to receive a weekly email from me where I tell you what I'm thinking about, fill out the form on the podcast website, and every Friday you will get a lovely email from me. How utterly splendid. Right, new feature alert, fan mail. A shout out to Karen in Virginia who got in touch. Great to hear from you, Karen. Thank you ever so much for getting in touch. Yes, I will gladly do an episode solely on lenses. It's a great idea, and I've added that to my list, and I'm going to do this after I've recorded this series of episodes, which are all about taking better photos. Thanks again for getting in touch, Karen. I really appreciate it. And if you're getting in touch using the fan mail thing on the podcast feed, I can't reply directly, but I will include what you say in a future episode, so get in touch. Be great to hear from you. Right, I'm done. Blimey, that was quick. This episode was brought to you by a homemade cheese and pickle sandwich washed down with a Coke Zero before I settled down in my homemade, acoustically cushioned recording emporium. Nope, no crisps. I am back to being good. I've been Rick McAvoy. Thanks again very much for listening to my small but perfectly formed podcast, it says here, and for giving me 27-ish minutes of your valuable time. Now, this episode is going to be about 25 minutes long after I've edited out the mistakes and other bad stuff. Take care, stay safe. Cheers from me, Rick. My brand new course, How to Become a Real Estate Photographer, straight talking advice for beginners to get you making money quickly and build a career, is available to buy now. Find out more at rickmcavoyphotography.com/courses.